Hi, I want to go over some questions that people have had about Unit 2. So let me just go over Unit 2 and introduce it to you. We're already a week into it, and your first assignment is due by the end of the day today, but hopefully you'll get it done this weekend at the latest to give everybody a chance to do their perusal. So in Unit 2, remember, every time you open up the units, the unit we're currently working on will appear. You can check and verify the dates as well. Unit 2 is up right now. The first assignment, the perusal assignment, is due today by 6 p.m. We're still in Unit 2, and I know some of you are still getting used to everything. So try to have it done by this weekend so that next week everybody can go back in and make comments on two other students' perusal posts so that they can get full credit, and you can too. When we go into the unit, of course, you have your video lectures, and each one of these lectures is fairly short. You'll also notice that here there's some important terms that you might need to be aware of. In each one of these videos, you can see that they're about 20-25 minutes long. They're relatively short and to the point, and they are what substitutes as lectures for the unit. The next thing you should do is go into your readings, and you see that I have chapter 16 and chapter 18. Chapter 17 isn't there yet, but you can get to it simply by going to the bottom of each unit, and after you finish reading it, you'll note that there are breadcrumbs to either the previous or the next chapter. After you read chapter 16 and 18, then I suggest you go back and do 17, because 16 and 18 are more closely related, and 17 is a little bit different, and it makes more sense to organize it in that manner. So there are your readings. You also know that you should also know that you have the American Yawp Reader. These are primary sources that go along with each chapter. So you can find your primary sources for chapter 16, chapter 18, and finally chapter 17. Now, when we go back into the actual assignments, you do have a perusal assignment now. Your quiz 2 isn't posted. And let me address this real briefly. Some students have asked right at the beginning of the unit, where's the quiz? Well, if you're at the beginning of the unit, you probably haven't had a chance to do the reading, watch the lecture videos, so you're not really ready for the quiz. I'll post the quiz at the end of the week once everybody's had the opportunity to do the assignments that will help prepare them for the quiz. Besides that, the primary assignment you should be focused on the first week is the perusal assignment, so that you can make your post so everybody else can come in and read your post and comment on it. When we click on the Hamilton and Hamlin perusal, it will take us to this assignment. And please make sure that you read your prompts so that you'll know what to make comments on, what comments are available. When you read the assignment, you're going to see a couple of entries from the slave narratives. And let me tell you a little bit about the slave narratives. Slavery ended in 1865 with the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. In 1935, some 70 years later, the federal government, because of the Great Depression, was looking for ways of employing writers. And they stumbled upon a project that a couple of historically black colleges, Prairie View A&M and Southern University in Louisiana, had begun a few years before. Those two universities had sought out former slaves to record their memories, usually by writing them down during interviews. Recording was very primitive in those days, so what they had available were some recording machines, but usually by taking notes or trying to remember what was said by the people they interviewed later on when they had a chance to write up the interviews. And so Congress decided to hire out-of-work writers and employ them with the job of going out across the 11 southern states of the Confederacy to find former slaves and interview them. Now remember, this was 70 years after slavery was over. So oftentimes the people they interviewed were elderly or had been children at the time of slavery and may have gotten information not necessarily from their own memories, but from the stories their parents and other relatives may have told them. However, there were some people who, when they were interviewed, were quite elderly and had been adults when slavery came to an end in 1865, and they had much fuller memories. The two interviews you're going to be looking at in this perusal assignment by a Miss Hamlin and a Miss Hamilton have some similarities and have some differences. Those are the options you can look at as you go through the assignments, and you can mark them. As you can see, some people already have begun work on this. Mark the assignments that maybe show to you the similarities between the two narratives, maybe those that show the differences, or if you have other questions about things that they comment on, you can indicate that as well. That's one of the options that you have. That's your major assignment for this first week. Now remember, to get full credit on your perusal, you need to go back next week once everybody's had a chance to make their initial comment, and then you can reply to 2 other students' initial comments. And that's how you get your full credit, by making 3 posts for your perusal assignment. By that time, Quiz 2 will be up and running. Again, you'll get an announcement when that's available. And we'll hope we'll learn something about slavery and about recording slave interviews. Finally, I suggest that you go into your You Be the Historian assignment. YBTH assignments here on the course and assignments link under your course menu. And whenever you click that, you're going to see some background information that will be useful later on, but also the first You Be the Historian assignment. Now we're starting off with Unit 2 talking about Reconstruction. And one of the questions that historians often wonder, was Reconstruction a success or was it a failure? Just a word of advice, there is no true answer to this. Historians have been debating this since 1865. So to see if that there is one single answer, one real answer, you're going to be a little bit disappointed. What you're going to find are looking at a variety of perspectives. And that's what you're going to be doing in this assignment, where you're going to practice your historical skills. What you're going to see, first of all, are a series of primary sources. You have a picture called The Freedmen's First Vote. Another primary source is an oration by Frederick Douglass from the New York Times. If you go to the Texas state capitol and you were to go into the Senate chambers and look around, you would notice that there's a lot of paintings on the wall of famous Texans, Stephen F. Austin and others. There's a photograph of Stephen F. Austin there behind the speaker's dais. However, over on the left-hand side is somebody not from Texas, and that is Jefferson Davis. Jefferson Davis was the president of the Confederacy, and you may be asking yourself, why in the world is Jefferson Davis painting here? Well, when you go and you look at the article from the Brenham newspaper, it will provide you some information. Speaking of Brenham, if you were to leave Houston, you could be at Brenham in about an hour. Brenham, of course, is home to the famous Bluebell ice cream plant. Some of you may be familiar with that. And at the Brenham newspaper, there is a discussion of why there is a portrait of Jefferson Davis at the state capitol. Now, you're also having to look at 3 secondary sources. One by Carl Moneyhan, looking at public schools in Texas following Reconstruction. Another looking at black lawmakers in Reconstruction-era Texas by Alwyn Barr. And finally, Walter Richter looks at the Brenham Fire of 1866. The city, right after the Civil War was over, was set afire. There were accusations made, fingers pointed, the Army, the United States Army troops who were occupying Brenham at the time, were blamed. Other people were also blamed. And Walter Richter looks into this unresolved issue of who set the Brenham fire in 1866. And you're going to get background of this investigation, but you're also going to have access to the investigation itself. This is the report to the Texas House of Representatives on the Brenham fire, and you'll see interviews. It's only about 30 pages long, and some of it is background information, but this was actually the Joint Select Committee's investigation into what caused the fire. And that is going to be part of your assignments for this You Be the Historian exercise. So it's not due until the end of Unit 3. You're going to be divided up into groups to work on it as best you can. But I wanted to give you a head start on that. So those are your assignments for Unit 2, and I look forward to one of your assignments for Unit 3.